I wasn't really expecting us to get this much snow today. I mean, it was in the forecast, but yeah, you take that with a pinch of salt, don't you, sometimes? And we don't tend to get very much snow here on the island, just little flurries occasionally in the winter. So this is actually a pleasant surprise. It's not too much that it's really interfering with us, and it should be gone by the end of the day. We'll see. Been out here once already having a look, but I think in this type of weather you can really appreciate having a greenhouse. It's so much warmer inside. So it's all snowy and cold out here, and I popped my head in here earlier. And I won't stay in here for very long, but so much warmer. Plants are starting to re-emerge. Some of them are a bit too cold. I'll do a clean out of the greenhouse when we get to the point of moving. But let's just close the door and let them stay sheltered in there. It's stopped snowing now, and I can see birds outside flitting around and looking for food. I topped up the bird feeder out there. And there's a good couple of inches of snow outside, and it really just proves to me that winter still firmly has its grip on the land. Even here on the Isle of Man, where it's relatively temperate and mild, it can still snow. It can still snow up until April sometimes here, and I know in other places of the world, even further into spring than that. And that's why I'm really glad that I haven't sown any seeds yet. And I had planned on starting them off this weekend. And I think I'll just wait another week before I sow the first of my seeds, which are the onions and the leeks. And I know that from years past and experience that if you just wait on sowing those first seeds, you are going to be less stressed, your plants are going to be less stressed, and you will have a much more successful start to spring. What I have been very busy doing is catching up on all of the February garden jobs that I told you about in my previous video. And there's a lot of work that I still need to do. I've got the rest of the month to do it, but I've started by topping up the wood chip on my garden paths. I've been transplanting perennials, so they're dormant right now, and as long as the ground isn't frozen, you can move things like soft fruit around the garden this time of the year, at least in my climate. And I've tidied up the surface of the pond in preparation for frogs to lay their spawn, their eggs on it very soon. And I've also been doing some work with both my thornless blackberries and the raspberries. A few days ago, I came up to cut down the raspberry canes. Now these are autumn fruiting raspberries. So when the plants are dormant in winter, you can cut them down to just above the ground, a good couple of inches from the ground. And then they will sprout new canes very soon. So for us, beginning in March. And then they fruit on new canes, so on those prima canes. Some people have summer fruiting raspberries and you need to prune them differently, but autumn fruiting is what I grow, and they're very, very easy. And you can see that I have the canes saved over here on the far side. And that is because I'm going to be using them to create more raspberry cane edging, but on the other side of the bed. Gosh, this is probably the coldest it's been up here. And the ice on the pond, look how thick that is. That is so thick. Could practically ice skate on that. So frogs tend to lay their eggs, their frog spawn, in my pond about Valentine's Day each year. I suspect that they're gonna need a little bit more time to find some pond or water that isn't frozen over. Until I see that frog spawn on the pond, I'm not going to do any work on my strawberry bed. And I have a plan to put a pathway right here, right through the middle, and that will help me to access the inside parts of the bed to pick berries, because right now in the summertime it gets so congested in there, and I'm bending over and crawling in under the netting, and it's just not very comfortable. So I think a little pathway will help. Now, the reason that I'm going to wait for the frog spawn to appear is that there are frogs in this patch right now. I've found frogs hibernating, living underneath the strawberry thatch each year. So I'm just gonna wait until I know that they're active, and then I'll start working. And then if I find any frogs, I'll just gently place them someplace else. As you know, we are in the process of buying a new house, and that process started last September. And so yes, it is taking ages, and it's basically lots of people are involved in it. There's a chain, but we're right at the end stages, and so it's just some final paperwork from our seller, and it will be happening very, very soon. And so with that on my mind, I know that there's going to be a brand new garden to work on, there's going to be the house to work on, and so I decided to downsize on my allotment, and I'm just going to be focusing on the main plot. That's what I'm going to be keeping. And because there's going to be so much work at the house, and it will be a bit of a drive away, I've decided to focus completely on perennials, low maintenance vegetables, and types of edibles that take a long time to grow and are fairly resilient. This is my rough and definitely not to scale illustration of the allotment garden. So I'm just keeping the one main plot, and I've drawn out the different beds and then what I have planned for them in the coming year. So beginning up here, I have quite a few different perennial herbs in there at the moment, and I'm moving some of them. I've got to move the Melissa balm. It's kind of taking over. It's there at the moment, and I expect it will start popping up again. But in the meantime, there are chives there and garlic chives. I'm also going to transplant some everlasting onions there as well. It's a perennial onion. I'm going to leave the Roman chamomile and the sage where they are. Oca, I'm going to try it again one last time in the allotment, but I'm going to put some wire down on the ground, so hopefully rodents won't be able to get to the tubers. And then I'll be doing some summer kale, and I've got a small sea kale plant, and I'm kind of thinking to put it there. The bed below, it has a gigantic rosemary in the center. I'm not sure which cultivar it is because it wasn't on the plant label, and it's getting bigger. So it's definitely a type that can become a small shrub. So I'm not quite sure what to do with it. I'm gonna leave it for now, but in the meantime, I'll be growing the chamomile down in this plot this year, some calendula, breadseed poppies. I'm gonna leave the lavender hidcote there, and there's a couple of other herbs as well. There's thyme, and then there's rudbeckia, which is actually a dye plant. Right now I have garlic planted in this area, and then I plan to put kale in there later, and then I'll put a very small patch of potatoes in there. And I've already done some work here on this perennial soft fruit bed. The gooseberries are staying, but I took out the big jostaberry that was here and I gave it away. And I've already transplanted a couple of currants from the plot that I'm giving up. So there's a black currant and there's a red currant in there at the moment. The wildlife area and the ponds, it's very informal, and it's a place where I tend to just plop plants in, but I'm going to be moving, I think, this is the current plan at least, the black currant sage that I have growing here into the center, and then moving the bulbs and plants that I have in there currently and moving them around. And then I also have the walking onions there. I'm going to leave them there. I'm going to leave the comfrey. I'm going to leave the dahlias, the lavender. It's just a big mass of flowers and plants that provide shelter and also pollinator friendly food for bees and other insects. And it all provides cover for the frogs that I like to encourage for my ponds.
The raspberries are staying pretty much the same as they are. The rhubarb, I've already divided that. It's already showing signs of life. And in fact, I drew this illustration before I decided spontaneously to put another rhubarb here. So I'm gonna have to have a think about if this is gonna be a bit overcrowded. I moved the sedum actually up a bit. It might be okay. So just imagine there's gonna be another rhubarb right there. The strawberry bed. So this is what I'm planning for it. I've already got the Marais de Bois strawberries, and there's actually some pine berries, the white strawberries, in this area as well. The Malling Centenary I planted last year, and this is the new strawberry that I'm planting this year. It's marshmallow. And then that big bed, I want to divide it up with a path down the center, and this is going to be a project I imagine for the end of February. This bed here, I'm going to be growing 2 types of squash, and this one is actually from the Real Seed Company, so it's a heritage open pollinated type, and it's a bush pumpkin, so it'll be relatively compact and won't be as sprawling, so it's going to be perfect for my small garden. And this bed down here at the bottom, I already have the perennial 9-star broccoli planted there. I've got 4 plants. They're relatively small, looking a bit sad right now in February, but they'll pick up. And then I have on order currently from Incredible Vegetables in the UK, a Taunton Dean kale, which is a perennial kale. It can get quite large, but I want to keep it relatively small, under 3 foot, hopefully. And I also have on order some little bulbils, and these are a type of perpetual leek, obviously a French version. And so that is the plan for this bed, so lots of perennials. Over here, I've already planted a cardoon, and it's actually doing okay. I have to have a check on it after all of this snow, but a cardoon is similar to globe artichokes in a way. They look very similar, at least. And then the currants and blueberries, and I hope to have a lot more wildflowers planted in this area next year. There's already some self-seeded foxgloves there, but I'll be putting in a mix as well. I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna have the room for all of this in this bed here, but I will have dahlias planted at the top there, and they're all Sarah Raven varieties. I'm taking out the ones that I've grown from seeds. And down here, I'm going to be putting in vegetables that take quite a while to grow, such as leeks and carrots and parsnips. And then I'll put some onions in the center as well. And then as the onions are ready for harvest, I'll be planting the purple sprouting broccoli about here. And if there's space, I'll be putting in some rocket and chard here on the edge. But it could be that that bed is just going to be those 4 vegetables there.
There is a pile of books in front of me right now, and normally my book would be right here at the top because the original publication date was this past week, and unless you live in Australia, your book is delayed. If you do live in Australia, you have your book in hands, and you're able to order books there, and everyone who pre-ordered should have their book by now. If you are an Australian, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you have your copy and what you think. But for those of us elsewhere, so in North America, in Europe, here on the Isle of Man, we have to wait a bit. And the new publication date for us is April 6th. And basically, a lot of people are affected. 17 authors with my publisher are affected by this. Authors and books with other publishers are also affected. And it just comes down to COVID. There's fewer people working at the ports. There's a big backlog in the shipping containers. It's taking its time just like everything else this year, but the books are on their way. In the meantime, I do have a bunch of books that I'm using to kind of think about the garden, think about principles and ideas for growing the new garden, and I wanted to share some of them with you.
I'm going to start with Grounded, and my friend Liz just wrote this book, and it is incredible. It is her story of starting a permaculture small holding that's self-sufficient in Wales, and how she did it. And she was actually quite unwell when she started this journey. And the book is part narrative and it's part garden tips, and it just shows all of these fantastic tips on how you can go about creating your own permaculture small holding, if that was something that you are dreaming of as well. And also you'll find right at the very beginning a testimonial from me, because I started reading this before it started coming out, and I'm really, really impressed and would definitely recommend it. The next book is Grow Food for Free, and this is by Hugh Richards. He's got a brilliant YouTube channel, and I'm sure that you may have watched some of his videos before. And this is an absolute gem of a book, because it goes through so many ways for you to grow plants and have a garden with a very low cost and very low financial inputs, and really clever ideas for sourcing seeds and making your own compost, setting up your veg patch. And I'm just reading through it, and there are just so many great ideas in there. And gardening can be expensive, so if you can pick up a copy of this book, even if it's from the library, definitely go through it and make some notes. The next book is one that I'm really excited to really get dug into, and it's a new book by Zach Lux. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And it is also focused on creating a permaculture style garden, but you don't have to have a lot of land. In his opinion, you can create a biodiverse, rich environment for growing vegetables and supporting wildlife and the environment in a tiny garden. And this looks like it's going to be filled with lots of practical tips and ideas for creating an organic, small, kind of mini small holding in your backyard. This book I picked up because I spotted Charles Dowding recommending it on Twitter, and it is brilliant. If you are interested in saving your own seeds and learning more about saving them and about the differences between open pollinated seeds and hybrids and specifics for saving seeds for different types of vegetables, this is going to be the handbook that you need. And you can see I've already thumbed through it many times, and this is something that I'm really interested in doing more of. I do save seeds, but I do grow a lot of plants that you can't really save them. So focusing more on organic, open pollinated varieties and learning to save seeds is a way to not only save money, but to support heritage varieties that you might not be able to find in seed catalogs in the future or even now. So very, very valuable resource, this one.
2021 has been a bit of a slow starter for me, and I know that it's been a slow starter for other people as well. But time spent planning and thinking and working with what we have isn't time wasted at all. And so I'm doing what I can to prepare for the year ahead and focusing on the allotment and the book, which will be coming very soon, and the move, so mentally preparing for that as well. Let me know what you are planning and doing at the moment, how you're feeling, what you've got planned for the year ahead. If you've started any seeds or you are starting any projects in the garden, let me know as a comment down below. And I hope that you're keeping safe and well, and despite everything, you're having a great start to the year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. One last thing before you go. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to Lovely Greens and click that little bell icon so that you get notifications for when new videos are out.